Welcome to CP Stated, the podcast where we highlight the people, ideas, and innovations powering progress for individuals with disabilities across New York and beyond. In this episode, we're giving you a special preview of the upcoming CP State Annual Conference on October 8th and 9th, where keynote speaker Tim David will take the stage on day 2. Tim is an author, influential communication expert, and former professional magician who has spent over a decade studying and teaching the science of human connection. His work, featured in outlets from the New York Times to Harvard Business Review, shows us that stronger connections don't just make life richer, they make us better leaders, better coworkers, and better people. We'll talk with Tim about why genuine connection is a skill anyone can learn, how it transforms leadership and teamwork, and what you can expect from his keynote at this year's conference. Let's dive right in.
Cool. Yeah, happy to dive into that. My name is Tim David. 2 first names. There's some sorry person out there with 2 last names, and I do feel bad, but it is what it is. I am an ex-magician turned author and speaker, and the reason I believe I made that transition is, boy, gosh, there's a few of them. There's a practical reason, there's a family reason, and then there's a purpose reason as well. So ultimately, it boils down to what I learned as an entertainer, I think is, or I have found, is relevant to how other people run their businesses and how business is really done. And so as a magician, particularly, there was an interesting dynamic with my audiences. There would be some people who love magic, and there would be other people who do not. And they would be sitting sort of like a 6-year-old in timeout, like, all right, magic boy, what do you got? Like, let me see. Let's fool me. I'll figure you out. And it was confrontational. And so many relationships, whether in business or in life, can start out with that confrontational, think sales, where you feel like there's a natural tension automatically built in. So the skill of connecting with other human beings despite scenario or circumstance, and realizing that it wasn't the tricks, it wasn't the moves, it wasn't the technical aspect of what I did that allowed me to be successful as a magician. It was absolutely 100% more the soft skills of connecting with audiences, and therefore also connecting with the people who may or may not hire me to get in front of audiences, and making sure that those connections were in place as well and strong. So really, the magic of human connection was born, and this is a bolt from the sky sort of insight that I had in maybe 2011, maybe 2012, right around there, and realized that that was the through line, that was the connecting thread that made everything go. And I'll be sharing some research and the things that I have found along the way that bolster that stance, that human connection is the dial, that if you turn this dial, everything else moves on that dial, right? You get better at human connection. Suddenly you're better at so many other things almost automatically, and maybe even the almost is unnecessary. So I'll be talking through a lot of that and some of the strategies and tactics, of course, that we can use to turn that dial. And then guess what happened, Bill? Guess what happened? The world changed, right? The world changed. 2008, 2009 was starting, right? The way that we connected and communicated was far more digital and far less human. So naturally, a lot of the questions that were asked of me, and I've been fortunate to speak all over the place. I've spoken in 48 states, a bunch of countries around the world. Have been featured in, the New York Times and the Today Show and Forbes, and all kinds of cool things have happened. And, published books through Penguin Random House, stood on the TEDx stage, and, leading to this pinnacle of my career, heading to New York next month. So I'm super, super excited about that. We were joking about this earlier before we hit record. And what I said was, in all honesty, in all truthfulness, I think the exact quote was, anywhere people want to talk about human connection in this digital landscape that we want to live in right now, you're my people, right? You're my people, and that's my Wembley Stadium right there. So I am very, very excited to be appearing and just just unleashing everything that I've learned over the last decade plus now, and sort of surf with you the artificial intelligent landscape that we're entering, and how we might use artificial intelligence and technology to maybe even foster deeper human connection. So very, very excited about all of the above, and happy to go wherever you want to go from here, Bill.
Yeah. You had mentioned, the landscape changing in 2008. Do you think people sort of exaggerate how much it has changed, or maybe underestimate how much it's changed, communicating and connecting with people in this new era?
Easy answer. Easy answer. Yes, everybody does sort of give lip service to it. But I was reading something the other day by Tristan Harris. He's the ex-Google ethicist, the lead ethicist over at Google, and or senior ethical design director or something along those lines. And they ended up firing him because he was maybe, I don't know, too ethical. And what he found is that there's sort of a slow slipping that's going on. So you can't overstate it. A lot of people do pay the lip service to this massive shift in how we connect and communicate. And we all understand it on a logical level up here. But it's sort of similar to trying to grasp how many stars are in the universe, right? We know up here that there's a lot, and there's a whole heck of a lot. But to the degree, I don't think we quite fully grasp or understand, and I'm not claiming that I do either. But really, I think it is less so the quantity of the shift and more so what are the implications and what is really happening to the human brain, what is really happening to the dynamics and the connections and the relationship. And here's my biggest fear: what is happening to trust, right? What has been happening to trust? Because as we know, as the quantity of human connection has skyrocketed, we have a lot of correlative data, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that this is the reason, but it sort of correlates to the same timeline. And I'll be sharing some of this at the conference as well, some of the data, some of the research, some of the shocking graphs. So I'm going to share with you at the conference a shocking graph of human empathy over the last 30 years. And you see it maps pretty well over the rise of social media and how we communicate technically. The human empathy has come down. So I think those are some of the implications. Those are some of the the concerns. And now with, and that's just texting and social media. Throw in AI. And now we've got a whole other ball of wax to contend with, especially as it relates to, again, this main area of concern for me, which is the breakdown of trust. We don't know right now. Bill, I could be an AI avatar. You don't know. And if you put up an AI avatar side by side with me, of me, you would not be able to tell, right? And I don't know. I don't even know if you're not an AI avatar right now, Bill. How would you prove it to me? We
You'd
don't know.
hope for
So
something
a
better
lot of trust
looking,
is
I
affected.
think, is
What's that?
you'd hope for something better looking. But I've heard a phrase catchy, and I'd like your opinion on it, but there's an authenticity crisis.
Mm.
You were talking about you know, empathy sliding and trust sliding, the ability for people and organizations like ours to be authentic in our spaces and communicate and present themselves authentically. Do you think that's suffering in this age? And what can we how can we better connect and sort of overcome that?
Bill, this is an awesome question. I love this question. This is a playground for me, right? So I want you to think about what happened when cruise control showed up on the market. The not self-driving cars, just cruise control. There was a very hard time in the marketplace adopting and trusting the technology, right? So they had to put in the word control. You still have control as the driver. The human still has control. And we are slowly giving over trust to technology. And we would much rather have maybe a robot operate on us than a live surgeon in some cases, for some situations, for some people. We would much more readily believe an answer that Google produces versus some person that we know who just comes up with it off the top of their head. We tend to trust technology, and this is what Tristan was talking about, the slow slippage of trust into AI and those types of things. And so when we turn over and trust AI with more and more tasks, we want to make sure that there is still alignment with our human values. And so it's something I'm not going to talk about at the conference that's sort of just for you for listening to this podcast is this experiment that is done on humans and then it was done on AI and the stark difference between the two outcomes. And then this will help inform what can we do differently moving forward in our authentic communications. So the it's a bit heady, and it's something that's called the trolley experiment. It's a thought experiment that a lot of young psychology students will get posed the trolley experiment, and the idea goes like this: you see a trolley careening down or a train careening down a track, and on that track there's a group of five people unaware. They got headphones on. They're not going to move on their own. The train is going to wipe out these five people. But you have a switch that you could change the track. And on the other track is only one person who would die. Do you flip the switch or do you not flip the switch? This is part one of the trolley question. Bill, I'll let you answer on behalf of everyone. There's a universal answer that most people say. What
Sure.
do you do? Do you flip the switch or not?
I'm going to flip the switch.
You're gonna flip the switch. It's better to lose one than to lose five. So rather than leave it at that, the trolley experiment goes to the next step, and they say this: okay, instead of flipping a switch, instead of flipping a switch, the difference here is there are five people on a track. They're all going to die. The train is coming. There is one person on a train bridge over the tracks, and you're with them. And if you push them onto the track, the train will derail and save those five people. But you have to look this person in the face and push them off of the bridge and kill one person to save five. What do you do, Bill?
Oh boy. That's I'm not sure I'd be able to make a decision in time. That's
Isn't,
yeah.
and you're not alone, Bill, people really struggle with this one. The percentages of the people who are willing to now sacrifice one for five goes way down. People are very, very, oh, now it's real. Now it's a person, right? So, and I'm liable. I'm not a hero anymore. I'm a villain, right? And so there's a real internal struggle there, and you're absolutely on point with what most people say. If you ask these same two questions to AI, ChatGPT will come back with you flip the switch just like humans would, and without hesitation or without a second guess, you push them off the bridge. And they'll justify it and they'll back it up. And what AI lacks, of course, is the empathy, right? And that empathy, we know, is a huge part of just what has allowed us as a species to survive and thrive and coexist. And the benefits of empathy are widely known and, not something to be taken lightly or taken for granted. So we're in a situation where, again, we're sort of slowly seeding our trust and our, like just take care of it for me, AI, take care of it for me. But the AI isn't quite necessarily aligned with our human values, and so it's that sort of slippery slope. And by the time we maybe realize it, it might be it might be the beast might be too big to slay. So to answer your question now, Bill, I think in terms of one of the ways that we can begin to maximize this empathy and begin to mitigate some of this is to communicate authentically, both person to person and also through these AI tools, right? We can imbue within these AI tools whatever we choose to imbue within the AI tools, right? It's still at a place and a time when we have influence. There may not be forever a place and a time where we have influence over AI. It again might become it's already showing examples now of reprogramming itself, and it's showing behaviors like blackmailing programmers if they think the program is going to shut them down, like revealing secret information about the programmer. All kinds of crazy things are going on. But I also don't think we're doomed and headed towards this matrix dystopian. I don't want to be a fear monger either. I don't think that's the case. We do have a decision point. We have an inflection point. We have an opportunity to once again decide where our priorities lie. And that's really what my mission is. That's what I'm so excited to be speaking. And again, on any stage where people are prioritizing human connection, you're my people, and that's my Wembley, and that's my new catchphrase right there. You're my people, that's my Wembley.
So,
And again, I want to make clear that to answer the question, stay tuned. That's a lot of what we're going to talk about is the active, what I call being superhuman. Like we can't just be human to one another. We got to go over and above and beyond to prove that we're human, right? I am not a robot. I am not a robot, like that box we have to check. We have to prove to each other that there is genuineness, authenticity, because the trust floor has dropped, and so it's just an opportunity that we have. So stay tuned again for the conference. We'll be talking about that idea of being superhuman and radically what I call radical humanity in this time and in this day and in this age.
I love that. I don't want you to give away the store, but is there a tip that you would give leaders to be more empathetic, to get them to be more authentic in their communication and their leadership? Because I think those things are intertwined. I would love to hear your opinion on that. Um, if we can teach AI empathy, can we teach leaders empathy and authenticity?
Hmm. So, Bill, I want to answer with two channels. If you didn't see on a video here, and this is just audio, you saw me pause and look up and think for a while. And that pause as a leader is, if you do that, it indicates to the person who is asking a question of you or seeking direction or seeking certainty that, I have to think about this. The AI response would be an immediate answer, probably be a lot of emojis, probably be a lot of M dashes, right? But it'd be an immediate answer, and it would be confident and certain. Whereas the human response does require, and this is tough for a lot of leaders to hear, but it does require a little bit of that vulnerability, a little bit of, I'm going to think about this, I'm going to process this. I'm going to say either a thoughtful no or a thoughtful yes, but it will be thoughtful. And it won't be coming from a place of ego as though I have all the answers. Leaders today are no longer what we call in the speaking space. I tell all my speaker clients, I coach a lot of other speakers, and I tell them, stop trying to be the sage from the stage with all the answers. And similar with a leadership position, you don't want to be perfect or even be perceived as perfect. You don't want to be a sage from the stage. You want to be a guide from the side, right? Lead from the side, or maybe even lead from underneath. And so the way that we can practically, tactically do this is by exhibiting moments of vulnerability, moments of authenticity, and especially even maybe moments of flaw. And there's something I wrote in my, oh gosh, I guess it would be my third book technically. It's called The Four Levels of Influencing People. And ultimately, that's what leadership is. There's no, we can't make any bones about it. There is a job that we have, and that is to move people. And I think if we want to move mountains, we've got to be able to move people. So as a leader, what we want to do is, again, exhibit this authenticity and this vulnerability in such a way where they see potential flaws. And that's counterintuitive. A leader wants, we got the job probably because we're good at the job. We got the promotion because we were good at the job. And we know that accuracy and being right and being certain and being, we perceive that as being a strong leadership quality. But the people who lead in a way where their followers would just die on the hill for them, they would follow them into any battle, aren't following them because they're perfect. They're following them because they have a connection with them, and that can only be fostered in sort of that human department. So there is a psychological effect. It's called the pratfall effect, and it shows that if someone makes a mistake, connection is stronger than if that person is perfect. There are some conditions here, right? You don't want to just make all mistakes all the time. You don't want to be a bumbling idiot, right? But there is a time and a place And I don't want to say you make intentional mistakes. What I mean is this idea of being vulnerable and open and honest and transparent. In fact, in some ways, as we say, radically transparent and radically human to the degree where we're almost over demonstrating our humanity. And that's so important in a time when, we have to check a box that says we're not a robot. We have to, all this, we constantly have to prove that. So show, don't tell your humanity. Show, don't tell your humanity. And vulnerability is one clear path to do it. And you're absolutely right. Didn't give away the store there. There's plenty more to talk about where that came from.
That's great. I want to learn a little bit more about you, and I want our listeners to know a little bit more about you. How how do you make the jump from, magic to speaking? You had mentioned earlier about, realizing the connection to, especially to those who were very skeptical. But I'd love to hear more about that.
Ah, yeah, I dropped a little bit of those breadcrumbs. I said there's three reasons, and I only gave one of them, right? So we opened a little bit of a loop, and I'm glad you picked up on that. So the practical reason I think was they say necessity is the mother of invention. And so I had a necessity to find something that was not magic. And the reason is because as a magician, I was on the road for between 300 and 350 days a year. So it was wild, wild times. Lots of gigs, and that's what you had to do as a magician because, again, I'm doing, elementary school performances, and, I'm not making, thousands and thousands of dollars per engagement. And that was fine in my 20s. And then had a baby on the way and realized I need to find a way to maybe work a little bit less, earn a little bit more. But also, I'll tell you, the magic shows that I enjoyed the most were the ones for the schools because I didn't just go in to do a magic show. To get the gig at a school, you got to make it educational, right? So I went in and I would tell stories about say no to drugs and I would talk about the magic of reading and how I learned all the magic tricks that I learned from books and kids, you should fall in love with books. And I talked about self-esteem and self-respect and I talked about, don't bully each other and all kinds of stuff, right? And it took me again around the country and was able to have their attention and do something with it, right? Make a positive impact rather than just a funny haha show or maybe slapstick comedy where I fall down and some, kid slaps me in the face and everybody laughs. Man, I got a taste of, being able to, just input into, in this case, the next generation and really became excited about taking that and using that. Now, there's a little bit of backstory here. I dropped out of college to become a magician, much to my dad's delight. And he was very skeptical, as you can imagine. He was a nuclear physicist, so magic was not really something that normally would fit into his paradigm of what, you go to college, you get your degree, you start your career. My mother was an accountant. My older brother went off to college, became a sound engineer. Now he works for Bose Speaker Corporation, so sweet discounts for me. But the idea is practical, A, follow the path. And so I veered heavily to the left. And when I realized I couldn't have that career for the rest of my life and be a dad, that's a choice I made. I think some people could have managed it, but I wanted to be available and be around. Um, I went back to my dad and I said, I'm going to go back to school. I need to settle down, get the job. I'm starting a family here. I want to be around. And he said, You're crazy. You're insane. Like the ability to stand on a stage and engage an audience is rare. And I think you got something to tell. I think you got something to share. So he was the one actually who encouraged that. So those are the three reasons kind of intermingled: the practical reason, the sort of heartfelt reason, and of course the path of what I learned and why I wanted to share it.
That's great. What has there been anything in your career that surprised you about how people connect? Like that really, like, you took your own left, like, okay, this came out of left field. I'm really surprised that people connect in this way.
So boy, there's a lot. I think one of the most interesting, because I take a very, I have a heavy influence from my family in terms of science and, logical thinking and all of this. And yes, I have an artistic and creative side, but really approach the idea of human connection and have done just mountains and mountains of research, especially when you're writing a book, especially when Penguin Random House says, "Hey, here's an advance and make it good." You make sure that it's rooted in science, and we really go to great lengths for that. And science is essentially, it starts when somebody goes, that's weird, right? And like, I didn't quite expect that. So to say, has there been any surprises is to sort of say, hey, is there any science on this topic? Is there any like anything that kind of goes, down that route? And so to make that um, real for the audience. One of the non-scientific surprises is the fact that, as I was writing the book, The 7 Day Digital Diet, which is something I think my audience sort of demanded from me. They said, "Hey, how do I get my kids to get off their phones? How do I get myself to get off my phone for a second? How do I put the phone down and human connect? How do I put the phone down and then human connect?" And what I found through the research of that, and the reason it's called the 7 Day Digital Diet and not the 7 Day Fast, is because technology and connection are compatible. And that may be not necessarily for me anymore, right? But early on, that may be one of the biggest surprises that we have is not only are they compatible, but they're like best friends, right? When done right, when done properly. And so when we think about how connection is made and how connection is accomplished through channels like digital technology, we find way back when, World War II era, my grandparents, they fell in love through letters, right? So it was just a medium of communication. The technology of pad and pen, right, is sort of a way. So is it possible to create connection, genuine, true human connection, maybe with some more dimensions, maybe with some video, maybe with some audio, maybe through a device, I don't know, like a phone, perhaps? Now, of course, that's the possibility and the potential and the grand hope that humanity has for technology and the benefits of technology. Those benefits can come at a cost. And that's something, again, that's just a choice that we each as individuals get to make. So, biggest surprise, technology and human connection are not just compatible, but they are best friends. We'll talk a little bit about AI generated human connection at the conference and what that actually means and what that actually entails, and how the fact is that it isn't fake or replacement. It's a channel that can make us be even more real with each other. So, looking forward to that.
Excellent. What are people going to walk away from the keynote with?
Yeah, super excited to explore that. I mean, again, number one, we're gonna have a good time. I don't think anybody can learn anything unless there's an engagement, unless we are enraptured by story or humor, or maybe some people up on stage interacting with me, perhaps maybe with some magic and or mentalism experiences. So it's going to be definitely something that you're not going to want to miss. The live component is still such a real opportunity for us to practice what we preach and live the message. And almost, again, I want to sort of teach on that meta level that those two channels, we're going to experience it together. And we're also going to talk about it. We're going to facilitate some conversation. And my hope, again, is high level without spilling the tea, without diving into the nuts and the bolts. My hope is that, ultimately we can make our days easier, more effective, more efficient. My hope and my role is often to allow human connection to increase so that some of our outcomes can increase. And, one of the outcomes as a side benefit just happens to be that everything that we can apply at work also impacts and affects us in our lives and in our relationships at home and even in our own solitude life as well. So, yeah, I think applicable is the name of the game for me. Practical is super important. Usable, something you can take and use right first thing in the next morning when you're back into work.
Tim, this is amazing. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to CP Stated. We hope you'll subscribe, share, and join us for more conversations about the individuals, ideas, and innovations shaping services for people with disabilities in New York and beyond. Until next time, stay connected, stay committed, and stay CP Stated.